Hey, I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff. Today I'm going to use a mic stand to make an overhead camera rig. I got some angle iron, a steel rod, a flat bar, and some square tubing. I measured 18 inches on the square tubing and cut 4 pieces to that length with the angle grinder. I clamped all 4 pieces together and used a file to clean up the edges. The angle iron acted as my verticals and the square tubing as my horizontals. I held them in place with some magnets to keep them at 90-degree angles and then welded all the joints together. Just so you know, the square tubing was 1/2 inch and the angle iron was 3/4 inch, so the square tube fit down inside the angle iron. I made a second frame in the exact same way, and then I cleaned up all the joints with a flap disc on the angle grinder and some files. I added another 36-inch piece of square tubing in between the 2 frames and squared everything up with the magnets. This bar is for the back side. If you wanted to, you could add one to the front, but I didn't see a need. I measured up 6 inches from each side and then set the rod in place to match the marks. I found out quickly that welding around a curve was a little bit harder to do cleanly than a straight line. When that was finished, I flipped it over and added a flat bar between the bottom back 2 corners. Now, I didn't video it, but I ended up taking this out and putting in angle iron instead to make it more rigid. After that was in place, I went back and grinded down all the edges and then spray painted the whole thing flat black. I designed this to fit my desk, knowing that my parts containers behind it were too big and needed to be replaced anyway, but this fit perfectly well on my desk. For the overhead mechanism, I found a mic stand that was $17 that had everything I needed. It had all the range of motion, and the thread on the end of it was actually the same size as a tripod. It came apart really easily, and then to fit it around my steel rod, I just had to add one little rubber bumper that you would put under a piece of furniture. That helps it clasp really tightly around the steel rod and hold in position. I really like the GorillaPod from Joby. It has a really nice ball joint tripod head on it, and so I've bought that same head and put it on all my tripods. So I bought another one to add to this system. That way I can really easily move the camera from one tripod to the next. Having the ball joint really gives you a full range of motion. You can set the camera wherever you want based on the top mechanism, and then once it's in place, you can point the camera anywhere you want because of the ball joint. And the whole thing comes on and off with one click. I wanted to evenly light the table, and I wanted the lighting to be fixed, so I got a strip of LEDs that happen to come with a remote. It just plugs together and you can turn them on and off and change the brightness with the remote, which is really handy. The strip has adhesive on the back of it, so you peel off the tape and then just stick it to the surface where you wanted them to stay. There are marks every couple of inches where you can cut the strips, and then once you get them all in place, you can go back and make connections between the 2 places that you cut. They have little terminals that you can solder together with very short wires like this. I had to get 2 packages of these LEDs to have enough to cover all the space, but once they were all wired together, it gave a really nice even lighting to the entire table. The overhead shots worked really well, and even banging on the table with a fist didn't move the camera very much. So I gotta say, I'm really excited about how this turned out. It's way cooler than I thought, and it was way easier than I thought it was gonna be. I was really overcomplicating the mechanism up here in my brain for a long time, trying to come up with something really clever, but something that would be easy to pull off as well, and that microphone stand just turned out to be the perfect option to put there. It gives me the full range of motion that I wanted, and even though it's lightweight, it's still actually sturdy enough to hold the camera in place if I put it up at an angle or did something crazy with it. I also went back and forth about whether to use wood or metal for the frame, and I ended up on metal mainly because it could be smaller and take up less space on the desk itself. It's super rigid because it's steel, but if you wanted to use wood, it would work just as well. I think it would just have to be a little bit bigger so that it was sturdy. So if you're gonna make one of these, another consideration that may be different than what I chose is the color and the density of the LED strips. You may want more or less LEDs in the strips to increase brightness, and you may want to use a different color temperature. I picked this color temperature because it's the same as all my other video lights, so it just makes it easier for me to work on the video, but people always have a preference about the color temperature that they like the most, and you can get the strips in a lot of different options. If you did find that the LEDs are kind of harsh for what you're doing, there's a lot of different ways you could diffuse the light. You could do it with wax paper, masking tape, scotch tape. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it that would be temporary, so you could take it on and off as you needed to. Of course, there's 100 ways to do everything, including this, and there's a lot of these already on YouTube that are really well done. Casey Neistat has a nice one, Lynn from Darbin Orver has a nice one, I'll link those down in the description. So you might want to check those out if you're looking to do something something like this so you can see the options. I hope you liked this project, and if you did, you might like some of my other ones. I've got playlists with a lot of different types of projects, woodworking, electronics, 3D printing, all sorts of stuff that you might want to check out. And I would love to see some stuff that you are working on, no matter what it is. Share it with me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. If you like these videos and you want to support what I'm doing, Patreon is a great way to do that. Supporters on Patreon get to watch these videos early, they get exclusive content and a bunch of other stuff, so go check that out. That's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.